Sorry I'm late. Didn't know they're on time. Go ahead.
What sticks out about the offense being able to make these big plays the past 3, 4 games?
Probably, probably the confidence and the being around each other and just kind of becoming more comfortable with everybody that's involved in this as much as, Coach Mahaffey and the play calling, Coach Roper, Will McIlvain, Isaiah Weston. I mean, there's just a little bit probably of a continuity thing that once you start to make some plays, you know how to build some things around the player's talent of what was good and bad maybe early in the year. And then players making plays too. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what happened is you got some players making plays. Will's making a good throw, Isaiah making a good run and catch, and uh, Tyler Hoosman didn't even play the first couple games, and now he's our leading rusher. So I think a lot of the things as it was a young offense, if you want to call it that, as far as transitioning into this season, and now they've had some success, and maybe it's part of the schedule too, that who we've played and moving forward. So we've been challenged by a lot of good football teams that we've learned from very quickly, and then moving on into South Dakota and now Missouri State, we can apply what we've learned in that first half of the season.
Does it feel like the way the team played and you really kind of got some momentum back now moving forward for these road games?
Standing here right now, yes, but I think you got to start over every week. I think every week is whether you're coming off Iowa State, North Dakota State, Weber, or Idaho State, and now this past weekend. I think you got to start anew every week, and you have to build your week towards what's going to happen on Saturday, and then it still comes down to that execution on Saturday, and we got to do a better job on the road. We haven't done that well on the road as far as coming out like we have maybe some of the games at home. So I think that's important to build off that. It feels very good coming off Saturday's game by how things transpired and how making the big plays. We got explosive plays. We got turnovers. Those things all happen. But you go back and watch the film, there's errors that need to be corrected, and there's all kinds of room to get better because you just need to, this time of year, you better get better. Teams need to keep growing and getting better and fixing those errors and getting people in the right spot for the remainder of the season because each game matters. And you get this deep in the season, I think what's very important for us is when you look at who your twos were at the beginning of the season are now ones because whatever transpired happened in the season. You got injuries to tight ends, you got injuries to running backs, injuries to receivers, injuries to defensive backs. Who's filling those voids? And right now, we have always practiced that our twos get equal amount of reps as our ones. And by saying that, when they get this opportunity in October, they've been practicing since August 1st for the same amount of reps as our ones have. And I think that's important when you start taking the injuries that the next guy in is mentally ready to play as much as physically because he's been taking those reps the whole season.
Is that maybe just, you always have concerns, but is that one of the concerns that this team hasn't been able to win on the road yet this year? All 4 wins at home.
It's really not a concern. It's more, I'm just concerned about I'm concerned about having a good practice this afternoon. But it's not a concern. We are aware that we've played some really good teams on the road right now. I mean, that's part of it too. So it's not the road. It's just, are we prepared to play to our level, whether we're starting the game in the Dome or starting the game at Missouri State this weekend? That's how I view it more so than just, it's not the road. It's more how we're approaching the game and how quickly we come out at the game ready to play.
Road or home, how do you avoid a letdown? Because we're coming off a week of college football where Illinois beat Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
So conference games are what they are. What goes into it for you, for the players, to make sure that you're playing at your best, mentally and physically?
I go back to kind of a standard answer. It's practice the same way that you have been practicing all season. Don't make one game bigger than the other. But at the same time, learn from the games that you've played and make sure you apply what you've learned and not just experience it, but use your experience to your advantage. And that's as coaches and as players. I'm telling the coaches the same thing I'm telling you guys is find out what your players can do, go back and view what they're doing right and wrong. We just spent this morning watching some of the things that we've been doing wrong for the past 3-4 weeks, and then find out, okay, what's consistently do we need to correct in the next 3 days of practice? Where do we need to emphasize some corrections? Because we're not going to change them. We're not going to get stronger in the weight room in the next 3 days, but we can get smarter. And if we just correct an error, correct a technique, and then continue to scheme and plan, those two things together hopefully will create a winning combination as you keep moving forward. But sometimes we get caught, can't see the forest through the trees, and you keep making the same error. You go back and evaluate yourself in the winter like everybody does, and you say, well, I should have saw that. So I always try to go back during the season, review what you're doing right and wrong so you can make those corrections during the season, not just wait till, it takes time to go back and review, but I think it's time well spent.
Missouri State was just down 2 scores going into the fourth quarter against
Mm-hmm.
North Dakota State, a 15-0 game. What did they look like? How were they?
They looked really good. We had just watched them against South Dakota because that was the last game prior to us playing South Dakota. So I saw the remnants of what they were doing. I wasn't studying them, but I did see the South Dakota game at length. So then I watched them last weekend now that I'm watching Missouri State, and they played an excellent game against North Dakota State. I really looked at the personnel and things they were doing, and I thought they played very, very well. And they've got very good talent. They've got a very good system. And last week they kind of showed that playing at North Dakota State. So it was one of those things that really makes you aware of the type of team they are. Instead of looking at records, you're kind of looking at who they are. And I think they're a very good football team.
Kind of going back to what Cole said, is that something that you do address? Just the fact that don't look at this team's record. To avoid a bit of a letdown, thinking, well, we're facing a one-win team.
No, and they exactly. And I think what we all need to take a step back. We just got done playing North Dakota State, so we know what type of player we just played against, the guy that played across from us. And now we can really look at Missouri State's player across from that same guy. We got a good measuring stick, is I guess what I'm trying to say, of what that talent is. And if you just look at that film alone, I think it tells and shows our players the type of team that Missouri State can be. So we just have to make sure that we prepare for another good football team and not worry about what records are, because we've played the undefeateds and we've played the other side. I don't think that it really matters. It goes back to you. How do you avoid a letdown? Just prepare this Monday like we prepared last Monday and the Monday before that, and then just make your corrections and make sure that you put your best foot forward, and you got to play and make plays on Saturday.
Coach, your first 200-yard rushing game of the season. Mason Nyson, broke his hand early in the year. We'll talk about his progress at center, and he's got a direct and call to get you guys lined up in that run game. It's probably an important piece of the puzzle as anything.
Well, he starts it. He touches the ball every down, and he makes a call every down. And I think that why he was our center through that when he was wearing that club was a lot of those reasons. The snap was good. The snap was kept the timing in the play, and the call was correct. The technique probably wasn't as good as it could be because he was trying to use a club instead of a hand. So since he's taken that club off, his game has improved, and it hurt him. It hurt us when we played him like that in those first couple of games. But to his credit, he was doing the best he could, and now without it, he's a better football player, and he just needs, for us to get better, he's one guy that needs to continue to keep getting better, because those first couple of weeks he was really neutralized wearing the club. So each week it's better, of course, just because of healing, but he's more like himself and what we expected of him, and I think he got better last weekend, and I think he'll only continue to get better as long as he stays healthy.
How did he emerge as the guy that you wanted to go to center over the last couple of years?
He probably emerged because of more so his, the word I want to say is demeanor. When I say that whether it be his leadership or his communication or his taking the role as the as somebody that's got to make a choice very early in the play. He makes a decisive choice, and then he lives with it. And he's working with the left and the right side. You know, your right guard's working with your right tackle, left side, left side. But he's got to be the counterbalance to both sides, and he's doing that whether it's being protections or the run games. And he's got to make a mental choice before every snap, and that snap is probably the most important thing to keep all the timing down. That's got to hit the same spot every time for us to be effective. So how he emerged, his snaps are always consistent, and he makes a choice and can make that choice very quickly at the line of scrimmage so he can get on with the play.
Was he a center when you recruited him from Denver, or did he come in and you kind of moved him?
Moved him to center because we really liked him because of what he did in our camp. He was probably one of the better offensive linemen out of all our camps that we had that I thought was really good as far as drive blocking and pass setting. It was really big and wide and had all those measurables on top of it. And then when he came here, his ability to vocalize what he sees and his confidence in himself to do that. I mean, a lot of guys are kind of internal and don't speak as loud. You know, he'll make a loud, boisterous calls, not always the right one, but he'll make a loud, boisterous call, and that's what you have to be able to do that first, and then it's up to us to teach him to make the right one, and he learns that every day, and he's getting better every day.
With that run game, Tyler Hoosman waited his turn and then took advantage of opportunity, and on Saturday, he was your bell cow.
Exactly, and what Tyler Hoosman did is when he got an opportunity, he made the most of it, and he got more opportunities, and like you said, on Saturday, all those things kind of evolved into what he did on Saturday. So he created that by taking advantage of an opportunity. And then when you start to do that, that's, you know, you get more calls your direction. But he just works every day. Again, why you like him is because of the way he comes to practice every day. It's consistent. Whether it was Iowa State he didn't play or whether it was this game where he got 200 yards, he's going to come to practice with he will be the same today as he was the Monday when we came into camp or last Monday. You know, that's just how he carries himself.
And defensively on Saturday, was that a good story of patience because you stay basically in your three-man front and they got you sometimes, you know, they gouged you sometimes, but ultimately of all the battles you may have lost, you won the game at the end of the day, sticking with your plan.
No, there's no question that was a big part of it was to make the corrections on the sideline, to stay in the plan, but the players had to be able to adapt and correct those errors very quickly too. So by doing so, it paid off, and the length of that game, we took 90 snaps. So that's a lot of snaps. I think the offense took 60, give or take, and the defense took 90. And I was probably more concerned about the 90 snaps this time last week as I was anything because we had gone 2 games where we didn't have that kind of endurance, and we played multiple defensive linemen again. And then, like you said, we had to adapt during the game because a lot of things happen game plan-wise when you're that's a game and a half of football when you think about it.
Back to the offensive performance Saturday, talking about the offensive line with some of those long plays that you were able to execute and then how the running game got on track. Is a lot of that a sign of the growth of this group of offensive linemen now kind of coming into their own?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's I do. I just think I see how the offensive line I've always been pleased with. Now there's some plays I wish we played better in, but I just feel that there's enough talent there that if we can get them coordinated correctly and they play with the right intensity level, that we've got a chance to make some runs. And I thought Tyler read the hole probably better than what we've been doing it maybe early in the season. I thought there's probably better movement at the line of scrimmage than what there may have been. But, no, I think it's a combination, a lot of things we've already talked about of continuity, consistency, and guys understanding how rhythmically this whole thing works, all the way to the coaches. I still go back to them because they have to play to the strength of your players, and they can't just draw plays on the board and think they're going to work. You got to look at who you're playing with, what their talent is, and play to their strength a little bit. And I think our coaches have learned that as much as anything of how to play to the strength of our talent base.
Looking at Missouri State, what do they look like offensively? What have you seen out of them that will challenge your defense?
They are true spread team. You would call them option football. They got an extremely good running quarterback that is just as dangerous running the ball as he is throwing the ball. Very quick, very fast. We've played him before, but at the same time, we're watching him on film. Very multiple offense, a lot of formations, a lot of motions, a lot of adjusting. So I see offensively that they make you play the full field from the goal line to goal line as much as width of the field because of what they do, because there's a run, a pass, and a throw to about every play they have. And it isn't just the run. It's all the other things that are going on around it that kind of drain people, that they have to do their responsibility. So everybody's got to be responsible. It's old school option football. You better do your job, and the other guy's got to do his job.
Have you faced much of that this year where kind of the option?
A couple times. I'd say Weber was you had to defend everything. I think those guys the other night, you had to defend everything. South Dakota. But this is a different style in that. I think this is a little bit more even dynamic than those two teams I talked about as far as the structure of their offense.
And anything you can report, injury report-wise, you had some guys, I think, like Xavier Williams, and guys kind of banged up, hobbled a little bit. What do you know?
I think as I stand here before you today that right now there's probably only one that is questionable in my head, but it sounds like Xavier Williams and some of those guys will be back in the guys that we played with last week. There is one that I'll wait on here a little bit to see what comes of him as the week progresses, but I don't want to get percentages on it right now. So I just know that he's questionable enough that I'm not going to say he's playing yet because I'm not there yet. But I do think Xavier will play.
Along that line, Corby Sanders starting to run now. Is there potential if in the playoffs he could make an appearance?
Yes. That's a long ways away, but yes. Okay. Briley's making good progress. Corby's making good progress. I mean, you look at it, we're not playing with some good players that we had on August 1st. Okay. And for whatever reason, but at the same time, the ones that are playing are what matter, and they're playing pretty darn good right now. So it's nice to see. I think we do need, I'm going to go even back to, y'all talking about Tyler Hoosman. I'm looking at who's our third running back right now. Because our third back is very important, because if one of those guys goes down, you need two. One guy can't sustain a full game taking that many snaps and that many plays. So I'm looking at who our third back is what I'm probably most concerned about, even though you may not even see him on Saturday. It's the one I'm probably most concerned about going into this practice.
Wouldn't that be Nick McCabe right now?
That'd be Nick McCabe right now, yep.
But Corby, could he come back before then, or is it still planned to maybe just play in the fourth game? If you get that.
No, if percentage-wise, Corby will not play this year. I mean, when you're dealing with an ACL, I didn't even practice Isaiah Weston in the spring, okay, because, yes, it tests out well, and, yes, it will be stronger than the other leg, but I also have to experience that takes time. It's hard for an individual to come back and say, I don't know if we humanly can say when you're ready, okay? I think it's more on the individual, and it has a lot to do with the situation when you want to put him in that situation. But like in Isaiah Weston, I didn't let him go full contact till this season, and he got hurt third game of the season last year. So it's a little bit because of experience and results of that, and just watching what happens with ACLs and how they come back. But he really looks good right now. He's doing well. Anybody else? Thanks, guys.